Hello and welcome to The Point, your focus on what matters. And here, we don't just recount the biggest headlines. We break them down to see their real-life impact. I'm Brian Pham, and here's what we're looking at today. In recent weeks, images like these have been widely circulated in the media, drawing significant public attention. They are believed to provide crucial clues that could help authorities locate the burial site of many Vietnamese soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice for the nation but have yet to be brought home. And these days, Vietnam's 500-day campaign to intensify the search, collection, and identification of fallen soldiers' remains is entering most intensive phase. In today's program, we will take a closer look at the 500-day campaign. But first, here are some of the week's key headlines.
The ASEAN Future Forum 2026 was held in Hanoi from June 9th to 10th. This year's forum brought together more than 1,200 delegates from around the world, marking the highest attendance since its launch. Discussions focused on both long-term priorities and emerging challenges facing ASEAN and its partners. The forum also introduced new initiatives, including the ASEAN Cities Leadership Meeting and dialogues on youth and AI governance. International participants praised Vietnam's role in maintaining the forum since 2024, noting its growing contribution to shaping ASEAN's strategic agenda.
The Politburo and the Secretariat of the Party's Central Committee held a national conference to study, disseminate, and implement Politburo Resolution Number 6 on carrying out the foreign policy guideline set out at the 14th National Party Congress on Thursday in Hanoi. Party General Secretary and State President To Lâm attended and delivered directives at the conference. He outlined 5 major directions for foreign affairs. 1. Maintaining a peaceful and stable environment for development. 2. Making foreign affairs a driver of new growth opportunities. 3. Contributing responsibly to global issues and strengthening Vietnam's role in multilateral mechanisms. 4. Elevating the country's international standing in line with its historical stature and cultural identity. And 5. Building a comprehensive, modern, and professional diplomatic service for the new era.
The Vietnamese government has issued Resolution 148 following a regular meeting in May, urging ministries, sectors, and localities to accelerate key socioeconomic tasks for June and the second quarter. The resolution stresses the need to remove bottlenecks in improving policies for safer, healthier, and more transparent capital markets, including stocks, corporate bonds, and medium to long-term funding channels. This is expected to diversify capital sources, erase pressure on bank credit, and improve the economy's capacity to absorb capital.
And now we turn to the focus of today's program. More than half a century has passed since the end of the war, yet around 175,000 fallen soldiers remain unaccounted for, while more than 300,000 graves have yet to be identified. The 500-day campaign to intensify the search, collection, and identifications of fallen soldiers' remains has been underway since March 15, 2026, and will run until July 27, 2027. The campaign aims to recover approximately 7,000 sets of remains, complete DNA sampling for unidentified graves nationwide, and conduct DNA analysis on around 18,000 samples. The campaign has sparked a nationwide movement marked by urgency and determination.
Nghệ An Province, a day in May. The remains of 80 Vietnamese volunteer soldiers and experts who sacrificed their lives in Laos during wartime have finally been repatriated. Their journey home was marked by a heartfelt farewell from a Lao village chief who had actively supported the search and recovery team. Meanwhile, in Quảng Ngãi Province, architect Nguyễn Xuân Thắng and a joint Vietnam-US research team have been searching for clues to a collective martyr's grave. Their investigation is based on 2 photographs provided by witnesses, who are themselves US veterans cross-referenced with battlefield operation maps and aerial imagery from different periods.
Chúng ta thấy cái bức ảnh này do nhân chứng cung cấp, họ chia sẻ là cái việc họ đang kiểm tra thi thể liệt sĩ Việt Nam đây. Họ thu giấy tờ, thu vũ khí đây.
Based on these leads, excavation, search and recovery operations for martyrs' remains officially began on June the 5th in the area along Chongqing Road in Quảng Ngãi Province.
Nhiều năm nay, tôi tâm nguyện đi tìm anh em đồng đội, đưa các anh về với gia đình, ông bà, tổ tiên, bố mẹ.
To achieve the objectives of the 500-day campaign, 24 search and recovery teams have been deployed. After nearly 3 months of implementation, the campaign has recovered 1,109 sets of martyrs' remains and discovered 2 collective graves.
During the implementation of the 500-day campaign, an American veteran who once served in Vietnam was honored by the Vietnamese government for his contributions for the search for the remains of Vietnamese soldiers missing since the war. He is Robert Ambrose Carter, a former military police sergeant who was stationed at Bien Hoa Air Base. Our reporter recently spoke with him about what inspired him to dedicate himself to this mission and the message he hopes to share. Now let's take a look.
First of all, thank you, Bob Connor, for joining the interview with Vietnam Today.
Yes.
You have spent more than 10 years volunteering to help Vietnam search for information about missing soldiers. What has kept you committed to this mission for so many years?
That started from my granddaughter wanting to do a project on Vietnam. I said, okay. So at that time, I figured I'd go on Google Earth one more time, and maybe the last time I'm going to be looking at Vietnam. So anyway, I opened it up, and I zoomed in on Vietnam. I put, at this location is a mass grave of 150 VC/NVA, buried on or about February 2nd, 1968, as a result of the Tet 68 offensive. Within 10 days, I get an email from a North Vietnamese soldier. So from that was the first grave that we knew of, and we had solid witnesses. And they ended up excavating. The next step was the actual ceremony proceeding, where the next of kin would be up by the stage area where the caskets were, and the first one coming down was a woman. And I zoomed in on her face, and I could see a streak that had run down from her eye that had dried. And now I looked at her, I went even further and looked at her eyes, and you could see the bottom of her eyes were just flooded with water. And they were just ready to drop again. But anyway, she's carrying it down and she's looking at the casket. And that's the only remembrance that she has. And when I saw that, that's when it hit me that I needed to continue this. And I said, somebody has to make a start. So I proceeded seeking out other witnesses for other graves in the area and or any place else.
The 500-day campaign has entered an accelerated stage that requires both urgencies and scientific precision. Large-scale technical solutions are now being deployed, providing valuable tools to speed up the search and identification process while ensuring accuracy and reliability.
Khánh Vĩnh Martyrs Cemetery. In just 2 days, the collection of biological samples from the remains of unidentified martyrs was completed. The next phase will involve parallel efforts to verify the identities of the fallen through scientific authentication methods while building a DNA database of martyrs' relatives.
Đây là nhiệm vụ mới, đòi hỏi về tinh thần, về trách nhiệm của người trực tiếp làm công tác quy tập, lấy mẫu, sinh học hài cốt liệt sĩ.
Careful, meticulous, and scientific. This latest excavation to search for a collective martyr's grave along Chongqing Road in Quảng Ngãi Province is being supported by ground-penetrating radar technology.
Cái radar nó sẽ cho chúng ta thấy được cái sự xáo trộn của địa chất phía dưới. nó sẽ giảm được rất là nhiều về cái phạm vi tìm kiếm cũng như là chi phí tìm kiếm.
Beyond the application of science and technology, the 500-day campaign is also examining declassified wartime archives from both domestic and international sources. Based on these 3 archival photographs, a communication campaign was launched to locate witnesses who could help identify a collective martyr's grave believed to be in the area of Lê Thị Giang Park in Ho Chi Minh City. And just a few days later, the first witnesses came forward.
Ngày hôm đó thì tôi nghe súng nổ, tôi mới đi coi. Tôi nhìn tôi biết, tôi không biết được liền. Thành ra tôi đứng đó ngồi thì thấy cái khoảng là cũng là 30 xác trở lên, chứ không dưới.
These new approaches are expected to significantly accelerate the search, recovery, and identification of martyrs' remains, so the fallen heroes may soon return home and once again be called by their rightful names.
Cứ muốn là các chú các anh nhà nước tìm được mộ em là sướng rồi. Nhiều cái mộ chưa có tên anh chưa biết, chiến công anh bất diệt.
Looking ahead, what we need to do more to actually find those grave sites?
The scientific approach, ideally, is really the most reliable. There's no doubt about it. Now, what scientific approach you have or what scientific approach is available, those are 2 different things. Currently, the scientific approach in today's world, the closest you can get is either and or both the soil samples, if you're that close to where you think the grave is, and or a GPR. The other step is a little bit more dramatic from the standpoint you have to scan to test the ground. This program would penetrate the ground deeper, looking for elements of a decomposing body. There's 5 major chemical elements that a body will give off as it decomposes, and that's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, iron, and zinc. And this is in regards to the normal area of what the dirt normally contains. So it's highlighted very, very well.
Now, looking beyond the search itself, how do you think efforts to return fallen soldiers to their families have contributed to healing the wounds of war between Vietnam and the United States?
When we find a grave, emotionally, and it's internal to each one of us as individuals, but I mean, we share in it. You know, the person who actually found it and did 90% of the work feels a little bit more than the rest of us. But we all feel that we contributed to families we don't know. I think in answer to your question, it's a relief to us, but it certainly has nowhere a comparison to a family finding out eventually that he's found. The ones that are in that ground, wherever they are, they died for Vietnam.
Well, once again, Bob Connor, thank you for sharing your insights. I hope that you will continue your mission in Vietnam and that the U.S.-Vietnam relations will continue to blossom.
The 500-day campaign is therefore a race against time, one that seeks to ensure no opportunity is lost to bring these heroes back to their families and their homeland. It is a sacred responsibility and a solemn duty to honor those who gave their lives so that Vietnam could enjoy peace and independence. And that's all for this edition of The Point. Thank you for watching and see you next time.